It was made for like scars.
Yeah.
But it's like
Your
a
whole face
wrinkle.
is a fucking scar now. All your wounds.
Welcome to your mid-40s. You are a walking scar inside and out.
Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table.
Hello, Katie.
Hello, Brandy.
How are you?
I'm just groovy. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Let's talk about drying, sinking, and fading. What a fun way to start a Tuesday morning.
Katie, what is drying, sinking, and fading?
Well, we decided that we wanted to touch on the process of aging. And we were just sitting in the office riffing and talking about episode ideas. And I Googled synonyms for aging because, it's not the sexiest word. Well, the synonyms don't get any better.
The synonyms take a dive into the...
Let's walk down this path together, shall we? Aging synonyms. Deteriorating, declining, my favorite, decaying, worsening.
Worsening is my favorite.
Degenerating, drying, sinking, and fading. This is the most...
We couldn't have made that up.
Depressing thesaurus lookup I've ever had. Thesaurus search let me down. So this episode we're calling drying, sinking, and fading.
Otherwise known as aging. A natural process that we all go through.
If you're lucky enough, here's the crazy part. If you're blessed, this is a natural process you get to partake in. But according, to old Merriam-Webster, you are decaying.
Worsening.
Worsening.
As if you were bad already. It's like worse and doing it more.
You were bad. Now you're worsening. Yeah. So the other day I was driving and my son looked at my hand and he was like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, your hand is so covered in wrinkles."
I have old hands.
I was horrified because I know this information, but the fact that my kids, they don't know. I could dye my hair red and cut it all off and they would not notice. So I was kind of horrified.
Yeah, that's when it gets you, is when someone else calls it out. You're like, oh.
Yeah, like a 7-year-old. An unobservant 7-year-old.
Bless his heart. Maybe he liked it.
I don't think so.
I've always had old hands. Like, even when I was in college, I remember I'm like, my hands are not going to do well.
I rode horses competitively, so your hands are always exposed unless you're competing and wearing gloves. But so my hands were always exposed. And, we never wore sunscreen. So my hands, I have potato farmer hands anyway. But sunscreen Millie up. But
starting.
And also when I was older, I started wearing wearing gloves often, but in my younger days I didn't. And that you're definitely seeing that damage. Mm-hmm. But it was just such a moment of him calling me in my head old without, and I was like, damn, that felt, I took that like a bullet to the gut.
So it's such a weird thing to think about yourself aging, because sometimes I still feel like I'm 20 something and completely inadequate to do any adulting. Mm-hmm. And the next minute I feel like physically kind of very old, like some of these synonyms we went through, and also like the most responsible person I know. Like I have one extreme or the other.
Well, yeah. And then you look in the mirror and there's 15 gray hairs and you're looking a little saggy and paunchy or whatever. And you're like, who is this person looking back at me?
Yeah. The
I don't
mirror
know her.
is weird because in your mind, I still look like I did in my
Sure.
20s.
Yeah.
And then you look in the mirror and you're like, what's off here?
Yeah.
Like something.
It's like a Picasso. It's just
Is
all
this
little
color bad for me? It's like, no, that's
I need to
your
go
face.
get my colors read. That must be it.
Like, no, that's just your face.
Drying, sinking, fading.
So like,
All of
do
it.
you, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't match in the mirror, like how I feel and how I think I look and in the mirror don't really match.
Yeah.
Maybe I have too much self-confidence.
No, I think I have heard so many women echo that same sentiment. I look in the mirror and I'm like, who's this woman looking back at me? And I think,
It's
you know,
imposter.
it's what you do with this where this conversation really starts.
Yeah.
I had a friend come to the store last Friday and we had this conversation as she was walking out the door. She is in her early 60s. And she and her best friend from her 20s made a pact that they weren't going to do anything. Like they weren't going to do any fillers, any stuff.
How's it
Like
going?
nothing. I mean, she's absolutely beautiful.
Is this a friend I know?
No, you wouldn't
Okay,
know her.
okay.
She's from Atlanta. She's absolutely so beautiful. And something really resonated to me in that moment. And she said the exact same thing. She doesn't recognize herself, but she made this pact that they were going to age with grace. That was the pact. We're going to age gracefully. We're going to embrace this aging process and we're not going to try and counteract it. I loved that. And I loved it because she is in my industry.
Yeah.
And our industry in fashion, clothing, retail, and specifically what she works in is very, I would say, overly correctional, overcorrects the aging process.
Yes.
And it's interesting because we all talk about her with so much reverie and how
Yeah.
beautiful she is.
How good it's going.
And we're like, isn't she so stunning? And you would never believe that she's in her 60s. I mean, she's just so beautiful. And that really took me aback and it gave me some pause because I do things. I do use fillers and Botox to counteract. When I see something I don't like, I want to fix it. And it really stuck with me all weekend. And I've been kind of thinking on it and like, what if you just didn't?
Well, it's funny that we're talking about this and you're talking about that because I have been slowly in my social media, things have been slipping in about the bad parts. And I don't want to say bad
Yeah.
parts, but like
The negatives.
The other, yes, I couldn't think of that word.
That's okay. Darling.
You know me. The negatives of consistently getting Botox and what that does to your body. And there are more and more studies on it because it's a very new thing. And I've been getting Botox since my 20s.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, see, I thought you were au naturel.
Girl, well, you know I go to the doctor.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
What do you think I'm doing in there? Just
A lot of
saying
skin
hi.
checks.
Hi. I did have a skin cancer and I do have to go.
Oh, do you do
more.
filler as well?
No, I've only done Botox, but I skipped my last appointment. I was like, you know what? I'm going to see what happens for a
You
few.
look
'Cause
great.
I'm on the 3-month schedule, so I'm
Yeah,
getting
same.
filled up.
Same.
Like,
Well, you're
you
getting,
know?
yeah, I'm getting filled. You're getting,
But I
because
have,
the distinction between Botox and filler or a Dysport Botox, that's like a free kind of like, I know nothing about this. I'm not a doctor.
but from what you do know,
But from what I know, like that is like a freezing agent.
yes,
And then filler is actually putting stuff in.
yes,
Like one of the fillers I get, because my natural tendency is to frown like this.
oh,
And I get filler here to not look frowny all the time.
oh. I remember. So I had gotten Botox on my crow's feet for years because all of the women on my mom's side of the family have crow's feet, and I knew that was coming. So that's how I started. And then probably 10 years ago, I went in and he was like, you have an eyebrow that's a little droopy. You want me to put some Botox?
You're like,
I
hit
was
it.
like, oh, I didn't even know it was drooping.
Hit me, baby, one
So
more
then
time.
I did do the one lift.
And then
And now we're doing little
The door
forehead
opened.
stuff. But I just thought as a fun experiment, because I can always go and get more Botox. I would just go for, maybe 6 months.
Yeah, I've been there
see what
because I've been
happens.
pregnant later in life, and
Yes.
it gets real ugly real quick.
I did take a break through all the pregnancies and breastfeeding.
Yeah, same.
So, and then, the little years, it's hard to get. I was not regular, but I would try to go every now and then.
To those of you who are listening, when I was pointing, because I realized that not everyone watches.
can't
Actually,
see
most of you don't watch us on YouTube. That I'm pointing to the area just under the edges of my lips,
The corners.
of my lips, and I get like
Just a slight frown.
I get a natural frown there when I'm relaxing, which looks really angry. Actually, it doesn't. It just looks like a woman who's aging.
Well,
and and I get a little filler there to pop it back up into place.
Because I was talking about how small your eyes start looking as you start aging, because everything is moving down, and it's almost like you get a wider, longer cheek. I've noticed that on lots of women as they age, and even like on Jennifer Aniston, who as good as she looks, you can see that difference of just that's naturally because gravity is pulling everything down. So I was worried about that the last time, and they were trying to convince me to get like cheek filler.
You do not need cheek filler.
I didn't do it. I really thought about it.
No, you don't need cheek filler. You look great.
I really
so
thought
plump.
about it. There were like 2 things where I was like, I'm going to do it. And it's expensive too. So I was like, no, that was probably the deterrent.
Yeah, it's a bloody fortune.
It is. My wallet is happy I'm taking a break. Well, I read a quote right when we started talking about doing this episode. I was reading a book, and it's Lisa Jo Baker's It Wasn't Roaring, It Wasn't Weeping. And she wrote this, and I thought it was just such a good example of how you're so shocked, not only by your own aging, but other people's aging, like your parents or someone, you haven't seen in 10 years. And you're like, wow.
It can be upsetting.
Or looking at pictures of yourself, like you don't think you're that aged. And then you look at a picture of yourself or your spouse and you're like, we don't look the same.
Right.
So she said, and like the rest of him, the skin on those hands has surprised me by aging. It is soft now, like glossy parchment paper, evidence of surprising mortality. And I thought that was a good reflection, especially on how you see other people and you notice their aging, especially if it's someone you really admire, like, your father or your mother, and you're like, oh, they're never going to, not be here. And then one day it hits you by simply looking at their hands,
Well, and something interesting, 2 thoughts occur to me. One is looking, you guys have seen like, oh, the Golden Girls were only this age when they were filming. And then it's like J-Lo is like the same age, and you're just like, wow, our standard for beauty has really changed. Also, I think there's good and bad in that. I think it's really lovely to accept the gray and the wrinkles. And, I think there's something very beautiful in that. And there are women who are achieving this balance. But then there's also this very, very strong social pressure. Like I told someone I was going to let my hair go gray. And she was like, you absolutely cannot do that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make my appointment today.
I told you my sister-in-law went gray. And
your sister-in-law
is so beautiful.
Is so beautiful.
It's like it looks like she dyed it gray. She's got all these lowlights and highlights. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Stunning, beautiful hair. Yes, she's also just really pretty. So
she's just gorgeous. I hope she's listening.
But sort of, kind of like that distinction, and then that standard for beauty, and then also, so it's kind of like we're now in this situation where it's like, okay, I'm trying to combat aging and fight against it. But then at what point then am I going to give into it? And what does that look like? And and what's the balance here?
And I think there's so much revolution of now being proud of aging. And I'm that way. Mm-hmm. Like I'm happy to be where I am.
Well, it's an honor.
Well, and talking about the Golden Girls, by the way, I love the Golden Girls. Do you?
Not surprised. I'm not one of those people. I'm not. It's not. It's just because I've never really like watched episodes.
You've got to watch it. It's like Sex in the City in the 80s.
Yeah, I need to watch.
It's so good. I want to live with all of them. I want them to be my Grammys. Oh, sweet. Anyway.
Give Brandy this moment, everybody.
I love the Golden Girls. But in general, I think
but they weren't that old.
They weren't that old, but smoking. Like there were a lot of lifestyle differences that I think play into making them look older, and then fashion. Them look older, and some people now not looking that age and being that same age.
I think there's something really cool happening in fashion for women, and it is that you don't all of a sudden at a certain age have to dress. I mean, even Rose, who's the provocative one, right? She's like wearing these, it's very grandma, these flowy blazers over flowy tops over flowy trousers. And they're all like this poly blend and muted pastels. And it's like, well, we're not going to accept that. In fact, I'm going to go the other way and I'm going to dress however I feel.
Except for the two of us that only wear flowy clothes.
I wore a very small vest today.
You have a very fitted top on. You look good.
Thank you, girl. I've never worn this vest, and I probably forgot to cut the tag out of it. But I think, and I also believe we truly forget aging is an honor, and we don't put enough emphasis on the fact that like every year older is a blessing, and people don't get that. Again, my dad died at 70.
Yeah.
Looking at photos of his 65th birthday, I'm thinking he had no idea he was going to be gone in 5 years. So it's like, this is a blessing we need to be thankful for and proud of. It's a speech I give when I was doing some other research here. And I'll talk about that in a second. Something I talk to a lot of women about, because one of the things I love to do is style women who have just had kids, who have completely gone through this whole metamorphosis as a female, like in her body. It's so powerful, and she somehow through this metamorphosis loses her power.
Yes.
And one of the things that I love to do is take her and help her find her power through clothing that makes her feel really good.
Yeah.
And make her outsides match her insides and reclaim that. Like that is something that I love about my job. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite part of my job. Why don't we do that with aging?
Yeah. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had a client in that's just like, I'm not matching, like I'm dressing for my older age now?
Probably 100 times.
Yeah. That's
I've worked with so many women. I couldn't even tell you how many that I'm like, they're literally, they have cried in the fitting room. I don't know who this person is anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold up, sister.
And I think it's natural to go through those episodes because you're busy caring for your family, caring about your career. And so you kind of put your own style and self on the back burner, and you're just going what's easy or what maybe you see other people like, well, they're wearing, sweater sets and trousers to the office. So I'm going to do that too, even if you don't like them, just to kind of go with the flow. So I think it's very easy.
Or you're trying to fit a mold of what you think you need to be doing.
Oh, especially if you're in a very traditional career.
I'm good at this because I did that.
Yes.
I went through that process.
I looked the part.
But I went the other way. Like, so and we're getting off topic here, but like when I became a mom, I went the other way. I was like, I have to cut my hair off. I have to do this. I have to dress differently. And I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
And then I had to reclaim who I am. So I'm thinking with aging, like, I feel like there's this point where we have to reclaim this womanhood and that it's okay to have wrinkles. And I'm really interested to see your Botox journey specifically, because it feels like I feel like it's a little like we're dabbing our.
Should we take a before picture today?
Yes.
I'm already I missed my last appointment, so I'm already behind on my Botox.
How far?
It was it was like right at the start of school. It was it was bad timing period.
It's I think it's like what you're going through is a little bit of a reclaiming. I'm going to take some of this back.
I did call my friend Todd, which we've talked about him before, who has like literally reverse aged. He looks better now.
What is he doing?
Well, that's what I was like. All right, buddy boy.
Yeah. Give it up, Todd.
He literally shot me his whole regimen and walked me through it. It's very simple.
Wait, will you send it to me?
Yes. He's using a product I found probably back when I was in college. And I went to buy it at the store, and they have this used to be like the only product they had. And they had so many more products. I was like, I don't even know which one is the original now.
Is it Vanacream?
No.
What is it?
It's Strivectin.
Oh, yeah.
So it was made for like scars.
Yeah.
But it's like
your whole face is a fucking scar now. All your wounds.
Welcome to your mid-40s. You are a walking scar inside and out.
We should add that to aging synonyms.
Scarring. Your soul. He's still using it. So you better believe I went and got some. He's using like all the different ones.
We'll share in show notes. Can you share the list in show notes?
We should share a picture of Todd.
And a picture of Todd. Todd, what episode was that? That's one of my favorite conversations we've ever had. If you need to, after you listen to this one, go back. Brandy talks about a friendship with an older man when she's in high school, and it is sounding so nefarious, and she's not getting that it sounds nefarious. And I'm like, what are you and she's like, no, it's cool. My parents were friends with him. And I'm like,
not any better.
I'm like getting ready to call 911. And then she's like, I mean, it's my gay friend, Todd. I'm like, oh,
I didn't know how.
Brandy, way to bury the lead.
I just love him so much. He's just like my life fixture.
We need to have Todd on the show.
He would totally do. I mean, he lives in Austin, but if he comes, he would totally do it.
One of our 25-year-old listeners, who's a dear friend of mine. She used to work for me, and she's in town visiting between a girls' trip and a work trip. She was like, what's Brandy all about? And I was like, I don't really know.
She's a mystery to all of us.
I was like, she was like, I mean, what was she like in college? I'm like, she won't tell me. She's like, went to college at Charleston, and that's it. And I'm like, what happened?
Just a normal student.
Let's call Todd.
Living my best life.
Can we call Todd?
Oh my goodness, Todd.
I want to be like, Todd, what are the stories of Brandy at college?
I have two friends. One lives here that have known me, and I'm still friends with them. From high school. But they're older, so I feel like they made really the cut. Give a boundaries. Good reflection. Like they watched me grow up.
Listen up, baddies. Our Patreon is growing like crazy. If you're loving the podcast, it's a phenomenal way to hear more exclusive content, including our monthly catch-ups, which are absolutely hilarious, uncut episodes, shorts, and coming very soon, interviews and more content piggybacking off of our most loved episodes. We can assure you we are unfiltered and maybe even a little feral. So go to the Linktree on our Instagram page at Podcast She Did What to get straight to our Patreon and join today. Remember, if you join as an executive baddie, you'll get an episode shout out as well. We can't wait for you baddies to see this extra content. So something else I want to talk about is
back on topic
is like the actual fading. Like,
yes.
And I loved that, fading was one of the synonyms because it's true. It really starts to feel like you are fading from, how would you describe it?
Well, so I feel like this is a really well talked about topic among older women is how when you get into your 40s and 50s, like no one sees you. Like you walk in a store, no one's checking you out. You're walking down the street, heads aren't turning, and they just kind of dismiss you, especially a younger
You become
generation.
Honored by a catcall.
You're like, give it to me.
You're like, oh, baby.
They're like, what do you want to see? You want me to show you some let's keep this rolling. And I think have you experienced that yet?
Yeah.
I don't think I pay enough attention to other people.
100%. I think just even in the store, I think I feel it a lot in my retail store.
Do you think customers look over you?
Oh,
and like towards a younger
So that's been a
salesperson?
really, really weird thing for me to wrap my brain around is like now there are girls who will come in and shop and I will be like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I feel like they're just like,
stop talking
you're
to me,
irrelevant, old lady. Like,
that's very interesting.
Oh, I've definitely felt that. And that is a definite fading that feels so different. Like, okay, not getting catcalled when you're, filling up your gas tank is like, okay, that's fine. Thank you. But
I do miss it.
I know I do too.
I'm just joking.
But feeling kind of dismissed, I would say, by the younger generation. And I'm like, part of me gets like kind of mad because I'm like, I have thousands of hours of styling. I am researching trends. I'm watching runway. Like I could dress you, better, but I feel so dismissed. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm truly fading to this generation. Like I'm not relevant. My opinions don't matter. And
that's interesting.
It's a weird, that's been bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I do.
Really bizarre.
I'd not really thought about it happening with you and your job, but now I can very clearly see.
Yeah. I
that
think that's
easily
probably
happening.
the place I feel it like the most like to my
Well, and I feel like
chest.
we could feel it a little more because we live in a college town and we're surrounded by 20-year-olds in their prime. But also, can we talk about how, and I've saved a lot of things I've seen on this because I want to tell my kids this. Like, you don't want to be at your peak in high school or in college or probably even in your mid-20s. Like, I feel like it's a better peak later in life if you peak later in life.
peaking. I think is so relative. What is peaking? Like looks wise? Okay.
But
like
all of the above.
emotional sort of development wise or just feeling the best
Or just your coolest.
your coolest. Yeah. I mean, I think we're, unfortunately here's what I'll say from a societal standpoint in the fading conversation, like we're not as cool anymore.
I'm very cool.
Okay.
I'm refusing to accept.
But I mean, that's part of it. It's
I
like,
will say though, like teenage children and like my nieces, they help keep me young.
yeah.
Like, and being around them, I do feel more vibrant.
Yes. I mean, I definitely think living in a college town and being around these young women is such a good reminder. I think also to not be so serious. Like it's like it can be
Yeah.
fun and light and we can be playful. I'm probably a little immature because of it.
We're here. We can do it.
I mean, life is short. Like, it doesn't always need to be so serious. Do you want to read your Stanley Tucci?
Yes.
Can you tell who Stanley Tucci
That
is for
is
the
what
people
I
that
was
are under
just
45?
thinking. If you don't know who Stanley Tucci is by name, he is the man that gives Anne Hathaway her makeover in The Devil Wears Prada. I feel like everyone will
He's
know
the art
that.
director.
Yes. And he is brilliant. He's a brilliant actor. He has a huge backlog. He'll be in everything now that I said his name and told you who he was.
He does on Instagram little cooking segments with his wife that are fabulous.
Yes. And he has a wonderful memoir called Taste, which I read and loved. But he has a book coming out sometime in the next few months called What I Ate in 1 Year, which is really like a journal of literally what he ate in 1 year. But of course, there's all this little extra
Anecdotes
tidbits thrown in. And it's not out yet, but I heard this quote from someone who has read the whole book. And I thought, oh, how appropriate. He says, what I would like is an opportunity to remain at a certain age of my choosing for an extended period. Just take a slight pause on the aging process for, let's say, 10 or 20 years. I think this is a perfectly reasonable request and someone needs to make it happen. I would choose to remain 40 years of age for a decade or so. At 40, one is mature, is experienced in both love and loss, success and failure, is probably not yet in need of eyeglasses, can still awaken in the morning and move through the day without joint pain and muscle aches, and has a memory that is still intact. At 40, one is not old. One has just reached the beginning of middle age and is on the cusp of being distinguished.
Oh, I love that word, distinguished.
I know. At first, I was a little surprised that he chose 40. Like, that wasn't what I was expecting to come. And being just past 40, I was like, maybe this is my prime.
I feel like 40 is a really great age.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I was talking to a couple of girlfriends over the weekend. I went and saw an orthodontist and they wanted to extract teeth and give me full on adult braces, which nothing wrong with it. But
You're not committed.
well, the very vain side of me, what I told my dentist, I said, I just turned 40. These looks are fading. I'm not going to spend 2 of these precious years in adult braces.
Yeah,
With
I don't
gaps
think
in
I
my
would.
teeth.
I really
no,
want to
thank
get my
you.
bottom teeth straightened back out, but I'm like, I
I
don't have
don't
it
care.
in me.
I mean, I have very not straight teeth. I guess they're flaring, apparently. I don't give a rat's patootie. I don't care.
I'm right there with
honestly,
you.
The only reason I went is because I have a bottom retainer I've had for 30 years, and I just wanted it to be re-glued. And they were like, listen, we
They
need to
saw
extract.
it. They're like, she's in a midlife crisis. We can get her.
We need to extract 4 teeth, give you 2 years of adult braces. Are you in? At the tune of $10 or $12, $15,000.
Maybe more. We don't know.
Ding. I was like, fuck to the
They're
now.
like, she has discretionary income. Let's get her. You should have been like, I have a podcast. I have no extra
I
income.
was like, absolutely.
I have to pay for these things.
Sponsor us.
Oh, you could have been like, in exchange for a sponsor.
I know. I've got a trade for you. There's no way I'm undergoing an oral surgery for aesthetic purposes. Are you kidding me? I'm going to get a mommy makeover.
Yeah, it would not be my teeth if I'm getting something.
Titties lifted. I'm not getting like, what are you talking about? Teeth, flare. Give me a break.
And the orthodontist is so many visits. Like, how would you fit
No,
that in?
I don't have time.
No,
I don't have time.
I'm right there with you.
There's no time in this machine for that. Will you read the follow-up to the Stanley Tucci? Because I was interested to read that.
Yeah,
show
so
notes.
I have a group of older friends that I meet with, and I'm talking like 50, 60, 70, so older than I am.
We call them You're Wiser Than Me.
Yes, my Wiser Than Me book club, and love them. But they really make me notice, and they're all city girls. Like, they all live in town. Or mostly.
City girls.
Yeah.
Athens ain't exactly the big city girl.
But you know what I'm saying.
They're in town girls.
And I come from a very rural area. So it really makes the difference between a lot of these women at these ages stand out to me, because my Wiser Than Me book club, they're all very vibrant. They're very social. They're very active, and they're just like living a very, very joyous life. And I love that. And it's so inspiring. And it really makes me love the age that I'm at and look forward to the next few decades. But I also know a lot of people this age that are, and I think it's funny, the city rural thing, because I don't think that's a determining factor, but that's definitely like a clear line of distinction in my world. So I've noticed a lot of people in the 50s, 60s, 70s that aren't social, that aren't physically active, and that they don't have like any hobbies or passions or joys. They don't seem to be loving that age of life like this group of ladies.
that makes sense. I mean, it's a purpose-driven
Yeah.
life.
I really think a huge difference in this aging, air quoting, process has a lot to do with like your physical activity, your socializing, and like your hobbies, passions, joys, whatever you want to call that part of your life, where you're just doing things because you enjoy them.
Right.
I think that makes a huge difference in loving your life in general.
I mean, I could not agree more. It's I think purpose comes up a lot. I really want to do an episode on purpose, and I think that might be a good one for the beginning of next year.
Ooh, that is a good New Year episode.
It's funny because the word has been in my brain and it just keeps coming up. My mom missed a flight yesterday, and her best friend and I called her to make sure everything was on, whatever. And she was like, we were talking about aging, and we were talking about, my mom's best friend lost her husband, and she was saying like, it's just so important that you have a purpose, and she's like, I get up, I walk, and I, do this, I do that.
Enjoying.
And it's so important as you age to create purpose. And like even my grandparents, like they loved to cook.
Yeah.
And they would get up in the morning, have their coffee. They would go through recipes, figure out what and they would try and make things like duck pate. Like they would do crazy stuff, like really complicated
Just experimenting.
Just experiment and see. And like they would start experimenting for our like Christmas dinner and like over the summer, like they would perfect things. And it was just like, that was what they loved to do, because physically they just couldn't do as much. They would go on long drives through the mountains. They lived in Montana. Like it was so like they had friends over all the time. The old Montana Poppin', people just pop over for cocktail hour. Like they just had this life that was so rich, but very simple, very simple. But they had this purpose that like their days were filled and my grandfather woodworked, but like when he couldn't woodwork anymore because his health was declining,
He found something else.
he could sit at the table and chop onions while it was like there was always something to get them out of bed, to give them something to do. And I think it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start some big hobby or, you know, career or, you know, whatever passion project. It can literally just be, I want to perfect making the perfect cup of coffee or the perfect roast, you know, whatever. It doesn't need to be, I want to try and walk a mile every day.
Yeah.
You know, I think oftentimes it's an echo of this podcast is it's not always so over the top.
Yeah.
Like these changes or these things that we talk about or this ideology, I think through the social channels becomes exploded and it seems a lot harder to achieve.
It can be a very minute.
But like these little things can make a big impact, you know?
I agree.
I also, one of the articles when I was looking into aging was about, it was a joy driven. It was like, we're asking the wrong question. We need to be, and I was like, wow, if that's not, she did what fodder. There was a practice, I read an article, we can link to it. It was a Psychology Today article. That's okay. And I read the article and at the end, there was a little like mindfulness practice. Can I read it? Go to a mirror that reflects only your face. Be mindful of the very first thought that pops into your mind right then. Remember that for now. Then look more closely at your face in reflection. Who you see is the person you trust more than anyone else, the person who has been with you loyally for your entire life. It is the face that reflects the goodness you put forth, the hope you have instilled in others, and the love that you have given. Your face also is the face of the individual with whom you have experienced every trauma, joy, and fear in your life. And most important to consider, it is the face that other people have loved and respected through the years, regardless of the number of those years. Cherish it.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
That was so beautiful.
It just resonated. It was like, you know, self-talk, it's so important. And when we're looking and going, oh, this and that and this thing and this line and that, you know, this sagging, and we're constantly telling ourselves that we're not good enough. Well, no wonder, you know, the beauty industry is bagillions of dollars and everyone's getting surgeries left and right.
That really puts things into perspective.
I loved the part about the face that other people have loved and respected through the years, regardless of the numbers.
And the miles you've tracked with yourself, you know, through all the traumas, all the joys, all the fears. Like, do we expect that to not come with a cost? No. Right. But the cost, it might not be exactly what you want it to be, but it can be beautiful at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
I love it. I'm going to do that later.
I do too. I think anytime.
Did you do it?
No.
Oh, we're going to do it later. We'll get back to you on my Botox and our look in the mirror.
You know, but it's like when you work out, you can either be like, oh God, I suck at this. I'm not strong enough. I'm not where I want to be. Or you can be like, I am powerful. I have more in the tank. This is my, you know, mind over matter. And if you don't mind, it don't matter. And like, you know, it's all about, and anytime I've had like a personal best run or like whatever, it's when I'm giving myself that positive self-talk, it makes a huge difference.
We should record that and put it on for Patreon content of you, and people can play it and they can look in their mirrors and listen to Katie reading.
I can read
their positive self-affirmations.
I can do ASMR with it.
No, I really think that's beautiful.
No, I do too. And I think it's really, I just think it's a great reminder to speak positively, to speak love back to yourself, because you are so worthy of it. And no matter what your age is, like, you know, just don't get caught up in, you know, the fine lines and wrinkles.
Nope.
You know, remember the love and what you've been through and like honor that, you know?
I love it.
I do too.
All right. I can't wait to see how my non-Botoxed face turns out in a few months.
I can't wait. I'll keep Botoxing. You stop.
No.
And we'll see how it goes.
My side. Be like, this is me with Botox. This is without Botox. You choose.
How about I go gray?
Oh, I would love it. Gray has been a popular trend.
I know. Can you imagine though, this dark hair? This is my natural hair color.
Have you ever, you go like blonde sometimes. You do blonde highlights.
I do like some crazy stuff, but you know.
Yeah, I think try it. We'll get you a gray wig and let you wear that around.
That sounds great.
The next episode. It is almost Halloween. I bet I can procure a very fancy gray wig from Spirit Halloween
store. A fancy one.
All right. Well, we love you guys
Love
just
y'all.
the way you are.
We sure do.
We're proud of your age.
Heck yeah, we are. And we're grateful you're here. And we will catch you on the next one.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and can't wait to share another episode with you next Thursday.
Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To keep up with the latest, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Podcast She Did What. We'll be sharing updates, behind the scenes, and announcements you won't want to miss.
And if there's anything you'd like to share with us, whether it be a personal story or feedback on our episodes, you can leave us a voicemail at 762-499-2201 or head over to our website, shedidwhatpodcast.com. Also, feel free to leave us a review down below. We'd love to know what you think.
She Did What is hosted by us, Brandy Chandler and Katie Jacobs, and produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday. And remember, it isn't always easy, but it sure as hell can be entertaining.